Welcome to AI Near and Far, the podcast where we talk with creators, innovators, business executives, and curious minds who are using AI to transform the way they work, think, and create. I'm Brad Moss, the CEO of Enhanced AI and the host of this podcast. In each episode, I sit down with someone who's putting AI to use in real, meaningful ways. We'll explore how they've used AI in the past, what they're building right now, and where they see it going in the future. Along the way, we'll dive into their personal takes on the opportunities, challenges, and surprises that come with this fast-moving tech. This show is here to spark ideas, share insights, and help you enhance your own experience with AI. All right, so we're excited to announce a brand new interactive feature for our listeners. As we are brainstorming and knowing that we're AI first, we're starting this week that each episode will come with its own AI-powered chatbot, and it's linked in the description of this episode. So the chatbots are designed to answer your questions as if you're talking directly to the guest. So it's trained on their insights from the show and their public work. So you can dive deeper, explore their ideas, or even ask follow-up questions we didn't get to during the interview. Just click on the link and start chatting with this week's guest. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Martin Tobias, the managing partner and founder of Incise Ventures, a venture capital firm that specializes in early-stage technology companies focused on reducing friction at scale. Martin brings an incredible wealth of experience to our conversation. He's not just a venture capitalist. He's a three-time venture-funded CEO who's raised over $500 million and led two companies' successful IPOs. As an investor, Martin has an uncanny eye for potential, like Enhanced AI, having been an early backer of companies like Google, DocuSign, and Deal, along with dozens of other unicorns. And what makes his perspective so valuable is his journey from a consultant at Accenture and roles at Microsoft to now becoming a serial entrepreneur and respected venture capitalist. He's seen the startup world from every angle: founder, CEO, investor, and advisor. When he's not hunting for the next big tech innovation, Martin is a father of three daughters, an avid cyclist, a surfer, and a poker player. He even spends his weekends tinkering with motorcycles, a hands-on approach that seems to mirror his practical experience-driven investment philosophy. So I'm excited to have Martin here and dig into some of his insights into early-stage investing and startups and leadership, and even perhaps how some of his poker strategies might influence his venture capital decisions. So Martin, welcome to the show. So, well, Martin, let's start off just kind of early, and this is, we really want to just dig into some of you and your background. But you started your career in consulting and tech roles at Accenture, Microsoft. So, can you kind of share what initially drew you to those fields, and what was really interesting there?
Basically, I'm a nerd. I'm a computer nerd. I've been a nerd my whole life. And in college, I started in college and I thought I wanted to be a nuclear physicist because my brother was studying nuclear physics. And I go to the nuclear physicist classes and there were no girls in there. I go, this is boring. Where are the girls? So I went over to the business department and then I go, this is boring. It's all theoretical and, distribution problems. Like, it's not hard enough. Where's that computer science? So then I went over. Anyway, I did a double major in business and computer science because I like nerding out on computer problems. But a lot of people in computer science were at the time, this is like before Windows and stuff like that, were nerding out about machine level problems, writing device drivers for keyboards and stuff like that. And I was always interested in the intersection between business and computer, like how do you solve business problems? So while they were writing keyboard drivers, I was writing stock trading algorithms.
That's so cool.
To do stuff like that. So then when I graduated, I said, well, who's solving business problems with computers? Okay, Andersen Consulting. So I went there. I worked there for a couple different clients. The last client was Microsoft, who was replacing their AR, AP, and GL systems with a new system and internationally. And I ran that project, and Microsoft did the math and figured they could hire me cheaper, and luckily they did. And I was there at a good time. Stock went crazy. But I made a bunch of money there. But in the end, I was working on this group called Channel Policies, and we were helping them. We did for the enterprise their first system that allowed them to site license software, because this was back when they were still selling CD-ROMs and packages. And if an enterprise bought 10,000 copies of Office, they had to have 10,000 boxes, and they had to keep these hologram licenses. Remember those?
Oh yeah.
and to validate it was, there's no software to validate your license. And so anyway, I helped design the first system that ended up being basically how they validate software licensing for everybody today, which is against a server. But we first did that for the enterprise just to logistically make it easier. And that was a business problem. It was like a company wants to be, compliant with their licenses, and it's hard for them to prove it. Plus, it's hard for them to install it over the network and stuff like that. So anyway, we built this whole system. But I was working with a lot of startups in that area because they were worried about things like digital rights management and encryption and stuff like that. And when I went to all these startups, I was like, man, these startup people, they seem to be having a lot more fun than me at this Microsoft thing. And so I invested in one or two of them, and then I give them a contract with Microsoft, and this company would be worth 3 times more. And I was like, boy, this investing thing's kind of fun. Maybe I could start a company. So anyway, I left and started my first company, took that public in March of 2000. Great time when you could get a $2 billion market cap.
Wow. Yeah, that was just right time in 2000. Right?
Yeah, $2 billion market cap for a company with $10 million of revenue. Oh, the good old days. It's pretty crazy. I sort of mini retired after that, but after about 2 years, I knew every word of every Teletubbies song, and I hadn't had a conversation with an adult, and I just had to get the fuck out of the house. So I went back with my friends at Ignition, who had started a venture capital firm investing in enterprise software and started doing more investments. And anyway, so I've gone back and forth between an investor and an operator. And about 5 years ago, I was helping a friend run a company in LA, and the pandemic happened and closed the company down. So basically, I had the same decision: do I run a company? Do I invest? And for the last 5 years, I've been investing full time. And so I've been investing pretty much for 30 years. One of the things that's really, and I've seen the different waves, mobile and the cloud and this and that, and SaaS software. What excites me about today, I think our topic around AI, a lot of people saying, is it hype or whatever? I've seen lots of these cycles. This cycle, I think, is going to create more value, especially because it's building on top of prior infrastructures like cloud and mobile and high bandwidth and things like that. I think we're going to see just a whole nother wave of this software eating all sorts of things enabled by this AI infrastructure. I think I've been investing for 30 years. I think right now, over the next 3 to 5 years, is going to be some of the most exciting time to be investing. And, for example, I was, an early investor in Google. And at the time, Google was not obvious. I mean, Yahoo was bigger, Alta Vista was bigger.
I remember that.
It was not obvious at all that Google was going to win. But if you look at the compounding and the power of, their algorithm being better and this and that. So the power, I think you're going to have Google size, DocuSign size, Microsoft size, Facebook size. And even like, I'm still a shareholder of Amazon. I bought Amazon at $6, in 2000 when people thought Walmart was going to put it out of business. And there was a very strong case to be made that Amazon would never be profitable. But they were wrong. And because they were running some other sort of meta trends. I think there's the meta trends in technology. The main trends that we've been driving it is Moore's Law and everything like that. But you've got another, productivity gain driven by Moore's Law in AI. I'm sure you've seen it. The cost of tokens is down like 1,000x in like 2 years. And where is it going to be like 5 years? Largely free. So the power of that, you cannot overestimate the power of that Moore's Law has given us, and now that this AI intelligence layer is going to
goes on top. It's so fascinating is that my approach has always been, having dove into this kind of new AI phase, let's build something, and even though the tokens might be expensive at first, let's use them to make it accurate, because knowing Moore's Law, by the time we get there, because you usually build something that's inefficient and then you make it more efficient once it works properly, right? And you know that AI is just going to get there more and more and more. And it's like, hey, we're writing the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy for 20 cents, right? And that's going to be 2 cents in a couple of years, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely.
it's incredible. Now, so you invested, you were an early investor in Google and DocuSign. What was one of your earlier exposures to generative AI, I should say, within these investments or other investments that you're seeing? And not just AI, but the generative.
Well, the funny thing, the idea of AI, I remember when I was at Accenture like 25 years ago, people were talking about AI, artificial intelligence, but it wasn't really fucking AI. It was mostly rules-based systems. They hadn't had neural networks or anything like that. And I had seen some university pitches on neural networks, and they're like, look, we can teach it to play chess. And you're like, okay, great. I don't fucking care. And so I really didn't pay much attention to what was going on in AI until like everybody else on the fucking planet when ChatGPT launched.
Exploded. Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, finally, because it was one of those things that, just like I've been tracking like, what's happening with fusion and, nuclear fusion. It's one of those things that's 10 years away for 20 years. And AI felt like that until ChatGPT.
And then boom. Yeah, it completely took off.
And so now I'm like, okay, I have to pay attention to this. And my thesis around, so let me tell you what excited me about DocuSign. And for the last 5 years, since I've been doing all B2B software investing, I've basically been looking for more companies like DocuSign. Now that was in fact, horizontal, and sometimes they do vertical market software. But anyway, the core thing that DocuSign did was B2B software that reduces friction at scale. You take some business process that in the past was hard to do, signing a contract, you had to print out a PDF file, sign it, scan it, fax it, and you replace it in software. The software thing is 10 times better than the old thing. Yes. And in that case, that applied in many industries. If you can do that, if you can take software and basically eat a particular business process at scale, you can create a big fucking company. Okay? And so I've been looking for more of those. And what I have found is that a lot of previously intractable problems are now tractable given the low cost of some of these AI infrastructure things. For example, voice interfaces to software instead of chat interfaces. Dealing with large data sets, making sense of large data sets and doing analysis. There's all sorts of problems. So, I don't call myself an AI investor. I'm still a B2B software investor. And I expect every founder to use the best infrastructure tools that are out there to solve their problem. And the interesting thing, I think now over the last 2 years that I've been investing, most of the companies have some AI component. Because the AI just enables them to solve a problem that was previously unsolvable.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Okay, here's a hypothetical. Well, with AI, what we're seeing a lot of is that it's improving the logic layer, right? Yeah. Or the logic layer like goes away. It used to be 70% of code was spent on the logic layer. So now, say that goes away because of AI. What happens, I guess, theoretically from a high level, what happens if software or as software is becoming cheap to build? Because it's always been expensive for the last 40 years to build software. And now we're seeing it's making, without that logic layer, it's way cheaper to be building software.
I understand. I just was tweeting about this same topic. There's a lot of discussion in VC land. Does AI eat SaaS? SaaS as a business, which is enterprise software, the business, is about a $200 billion business. Mm-hmm. And you could rebuild, Chamath has talked about this. He's got something called 80/20. And you're like, I could rebuild Salesforce and charge you, provide 80% of the features of Salesforce for 20% of the price. Mm-hmm. There'll be people that do that and try to disrupt traditional SaaS businesses by building cheaper versions of existing things. I am not interested in any of those companies because I think you're just making the market smaller for everything, and you're not fundamentally solving any new problems in new ways.
Yeah.
If you look at what I think the real opportunity is here is, SaaS is about $200 billion business, but human services,
Yeah.
people doing work, is about a $4.5 trillion
Yeah.
business. You're talking about accountants that use SaaS software and lawyers and all these knowledge workers that are using SaaS software. You're talking about the totality of their labor. And many of these industries are, in fact, constrained in their labor and capacity constrained. And so, for example, the company that I just committed today to do is really writing AI software to help do bookkeeping, multi-client bookkeeping better with AI. These firms that do multi-client bookkeeping are constrained. They can't find enough accountants. They're constrained on how many clients they can handle in a day because the manual processes, even using the most advanced SaaS software that's out there today, is still too fucking slow. Right?
Yep.
And so this is a co-pilot that basically allows accountants to double their revenue per employee by processing more accounting transactions per week. So I think that is a new approach to an old problem. You're not replacing the GL. Like they're going to replace QuickBooks. I don't think you're going to replace QuickBooks as a system of record anytime. So sure, you could rewrite QuickBooks with some vibe coding thing, but they have so many hooks and so many integrations. It's going to be very hard. I'd much rather just replace the work that people do on QuickBooks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That makes a lot of
8 hours a day. Turn it into 2. That's a much more valuable problem to solve than to solve the cost of a QuickBooks subscription.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I actually really like that approach in understanding and tackling the problem. Okay, so let me ask you another question. So as someone who describes yourself as a life hacker, how does the evolution of AI influence your personal productivity or your approach to problem solving over the last couple of years?
Oh, I mean, that's interesting. It's definitely helped me. I mean, I'm a solo VC, and so I do all the work on investments myself. ChatGPT writes better investment memos than I do. I can take an entire data room of information, all the notes of every call I've ever had with a founder, all their spreadsheets and everything I can upload. It can write a better memo faster than I can.
Wow.
And it's correct.
Wow.
So there's a lot of workflow stuff in what I do, because what a venture capitalist does is it's a data problem. I talk to founders, customers, references. I've got all these different data in all different formats, notes, spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, research reports, and I got to make sense of it. And AI is really, really good at that. So in all the areas of my life where I do, it's very good for ideas. It's not very good for original creativity. I don't like the way it writes for creative things like on Twitter or necessarily so much on LinkedIn. But in terms of munging through lots of data, making conclusions and things like that, it's really good, and it's really helped me productivity. I'm able to, for example, I wrote a tool. I get about 300 pitches a month, and I can't even spend the 2 minutes to look at each of those decks. And so I wrote an AI tool that reads the deck for me, that is trained on my thesis, my stage, my theories and stuff like that, and tells me of the 300 decks that I get, which 60 should I actually spend time with to look at myself. It doesn't tell me what to invest in, but it narrows the funnel for me in a pretty fucking good way. But one of the most interesting AI things that I've done in terms of personal productivity, I used to be, and I'm sure every investor is fucking swamped with random cold messages on email, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Can you look at my deck? What do you invest in? All this shit, right? And I've always felt bad that I just simply don't have time to answer every random cold email. So I used Delphi AI and
Hmm.
created a clone of myself, trained it on all my podcasts, all my writing, all my thesis and stuff like that. And now founders can chat with a virtual version of me that, I've tested it and it's 98%
Hmm.
correct. Like it's
Wow,
really good.
that's really good.
And, they can ask questions for free
Yeah.
that are pretty darn close to exactly how I would answer them.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and and that is just an extension. I mean, it's a service for founders that's helpful, that is very easy for me to maintain, and it allows me to answer those questions without me having to answer those questions.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. I'd love it. On that same note, now let's ask. You see and talk with a lot of founders and a lot of CEOs. What are some of the most effective ways you're seeing them use AI, or some things that you've seen them do that kind of just catch you off guard and you're like, oh, that's good, that's clever.
um, well, there's a lot of different, tips and tricks, and it's interesting. There's an interesting sort of bifurcation that I've seen in my portfolio so far of founders that started in the last 2 years as AI first founders
Mm-hmm.
versus founders that started even 3 or 4 years ago
Mm.
that started basically as SaaS guys that slapped a little AI on to try to help them out, right? One of the questions that I ask is what percent of your code is written by AI? If it's less than 50%, these are not AI native uh, people. Um,
Interesting.
so, and the some of the and and it's too early for me to say if the old way of building a SaaS company is going to be more or less successful than the new way with sort of AI first, sort of AI in every department, not just Cursor for development, but
Yeah.
AI for marketing and AI for sales lead generation and all of that stuff. I haven't gone as far as, like the Shopify guy saying we're not going to hire anybody unless we ask the question, can AI do the
Can
job
AI do
first?
it? Yeah. Yeah.
But the companies that in my portfolio that are able to move faster, that I'm seeing growing at rates that are above average, are the ones that have from the top down implemented AI tools in every department in the company. Now, some of them are building custom things, like on your platform, Enhanced AI, or on N8N, or something like that, or some of these code, vibe coding tools, or so on. And some of them are buying, AI tools that are made for that business, like,
Hmm.
there's marketing platforms and this and
Yeah.
that. So, but the ones that are adopting AI faster are basically able to move faster. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Now, okay, so now pushing that into like the venture capital world, what do you see over the next several years? AI, how does it transform the venture capital world? I mean, you're doing everything yourself. You see more VCs doing less and less, or doing more and more with fewer people. Like, how do you think it transforms some of
Well,
the VC world?
you know, for me, this AI wave, I don't know if you saw App Lovin's most recent quarterly report, but they basically reported that in the last year they doubled revenue and kept employee headcount flat.
Flat. Wow.
So App Lovin was able to double the revenue per employee. I think that very many CEOs have never bothered to look at that number because they've never been able to believe that they could fundamentally change that number,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
right?
Yeah. 100%.
But if you adopt a top-down AI first, don't hire anybody unless you just do a project to decide whether AI could do it better.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that, you will start to be able to do things like double your fucking revenue per employee in any company
Yeah.
doing anything almost. I mean, unless
Yeah.
it's like McDonald's, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the vast majority of companies can get just gargantuan revenue per
Growth.
employee
Yeah.
improvements.
Something that we've been seeing and helping and doing a lot of for companies is even, I mean, let's talk about later stage companies, not even early stage investing, but there's some, not every company is successful, and some are just like teetering on the edge. And we've had several come to us and say, hey, our boards, we're going to we have to make dramatic decisions and changes in this company. We've come in and built systems for them, AI systems that have completely, like you said, doubled the kind of revenue per employee. And the company was so thin on margin or underwater on margin. All of a sudden they're profitable now. And it's almost like everyone should be looking at this with struggling companies. It's
well,
like,
they should. And that is, I think, why I'm excited about, in part, about your opportunity is that everyone's getting the message from the media, but most people don't know where to start or have tried. I mean, you can't hire the right AI people. You can't, fucking Mark Zuckerberg's paying people $100 million signing bonuses. Do you really think you're going to get the best AI people? Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So there's a definite shortage, but that's also why, one of the things that's happened really just in the last year is the explosion of these vibe coding things like Cursor and Replit and Bolt.new, where people who have absolutely no coding experience can create, dashboards, maybe not full enterprise software, but, that kind of ability to, hack something together in English is going to whet the appetite for a lot of people. And then, for a real enterprise deployment, they're going to need something a little more like what you provide. But I think it's going to increase demand for real enterprise things and all of that. But yeah, I mean, everyone's gotten the memo that they have to do something, and very few people have the resources or understand how to start and get going. It's going to take, some years. But the interesting thing is that the pace of adoption, is also like faster than I've seen, because everybody's got the memo and they're willing to try stuff. So if you have any kind of solution, even in traditional industries, I did a deal a couple of months ago. It's an AI voice agent for heavy equipment like railroad and truck maintenance yards. Nobody has built software for heavy equipment maintenance yards like ever.
Yeah. The market's too small for the cost, but now
the market's too small or whatever. I mean, these guys are out there with a fucking wrench, and the average guy's like 60 years old, and he's got a clipboard and he's writing his shit down. Like, these industries are ancient, but they also have know that their workforce is aging. They know they have an operational efficiency problem. Somebody shows up and says, I've got some software just for you. To your point about the fact that it's cheaper to make software, someone was able to make a tool for them very quickly and very cheaply for a market that in the past was too small to build for.
Yeah.
But now they could. And they got crazy adoption because people are like, oh, I can just talk into my phone and tell them what I did during the day, and it updates the database and tracks the progress of the project and everything. Like, I don't have to go back to the office and type on a keyboard with my greasy fucking fingers.
The next 3 hours or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'll use that. Like, I know how to talk.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's, again, a perfect example of an industry that was forgotten by the last wave of software because it was so expensive and complex to build.
Yeah.
But now you can build, and it's actually a fairly big market. I mean, literally, hundreds of billions of dollars spent on this stuff, and these guys have constrained capacity, and it really improves they basically free up 10 to 20% of the technician's time from documentation to doing more technician work, and that's worth a lot of money to these businesses.
Yeah. That makes a lot
Again, a previously intractable problem with the prior architecture of developing and deploying software.
That's why this is such an exciting time, right? It's like all of a sudden everything, like the doors are blowing off of everything. It's like, well, there's an opportunity just about everywhere. Yeah. Okay. Here's a more technical question. I just wanted your opinion on. So I'm actually seeing, You've heard me say this before, that I feel like the traditional software is like the left side of the brain, and AI is like the right side of the brain, where it's really creative and procedural. It's not exact, but traditional software is exact and precise. Yes. What I'm seeing some of in the software development, and I'm curious if you've seen this, is that this mix between AI and traditional coding in the actual coding process. So, for example, we did a project for someone. We were setting up a scheduler, a really complex schedule system that they could someone was going to charge them, a couple $100,000 to build it. And with an AI solution, we built it pretty swiftly and efficiently, but it took code that we had to ingest certain code, switch it to AI, and then switch it back into code, and then switch it back into AI to like skip certain pieces, because AI was way better at certain pieces that would have taken way too long to code. But the coding pieces could do certain things accurately that AI never could do. Yeah. Are you seeing those kind of like, I think it's just fascinating, like traditional software and AI like mashing like that. And we're seeing this in a lot of different spots. I don't know if that's anything you've given
I mean, I'm starting to see that. That's also one of the artifacts of like all these non-coders using these vibe coding things like Lovable to try to build something. I mean, Jason from Saster just posted a thread. He tried to build something on Replit, and Replit, he was working on his production database rather than a development environment, and
they wiped it.
Deleted his production database.
Just saw that.
And like, that's a mistake a traditional software development organization would not make.
Yeah, you put it on your
desk. And a non-coder, these AI tools can make mistakes and do things when they're in the hands of people who don't understand development that are really, really fucked up. So I think you're going to get a backlash, back to engineers who understand how to drive these things. And I saw a business plan the other day. I don't know if it's any good, but it's basically a QA and risk tool to look at code that's produced by these no-code tools that's written by AI that checks to see what risks there may be. Like, are they accessing data they shouldn't? Are they looping? Like, basically a QA. Because right now there's almost no QA for these no-code things. They write the code and you have absolutely no idea.
And then you test it and try to figure out if it's working.
It breaks and this and that. So I definitely think there's going to be more need, for real engineers involved in that, and it may require hand coding these things. I actually think Jason published this other thing as well, and I agree with him. I don't know if anybody's going to start a company, but he's like, I think there's a $500 million a year business finishing people's Lovable and Replit projects.
Yeah, probably.
Because let's say you go all the way down, but it's still got some problems or performance.
It's always 80%. Yeah.
Whatever, right? And then you get somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing, and they go in and they look at the code and they rewrite this and they change that and they basically just get the thing to work.
Yeah.
In the end, like you said, you had to go in and plug together some code with no code or computer generated code to make the thing actually work in the right way. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot more of that required.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, let me ask you just one last question here about the future for founders. Like, what do you think founders, I mean, you meet and talk with a lot of them. What do you think kind of skills they need to really thrive in a future of AI in the next, 5 years or so? What are the skills they're needing to learn?
I think it's the age-old skill, and that's curiosity. You have to fundamentally be a curious person. And one of the things AI allows you to do is you can satisfy your curiosity down a rabbit hole way faster.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're fundamentally a curious person, you can get answers, start things, do things an order of magnitude faster with AI, and that'll get to the business case and all of these other things. Like it was actually frustrating, in sort of even 5 years ago. A founder has an idea. And he had to raise venture capital. He had to spend a year writing a product. He had to hire marketing people. He had to go out and test the market. And it could be 2 fucking years after he has the idea if he knows whether the thing works and anybody buys it. You could do that cycle in a weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
right? And so fundamentally curious people can test their ideas um, much faster, which is, I think, the core of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, Martin, it's been wonderful to have you on the show today. Martin Tobias, managing partner and founder of Incisive Ventures. I hope we can do this again sometime. This has been
All
great.
right.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me,
Appreciate it.
Brad, and good luck
Yeah.
with Enhanced.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for today's episode of AI Near and Far. Big thanks to today's guests for joining us and sharing their story. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. If you prefer to watch these episodes, you can find them all on YouTube. And if you're feeling generous, please leave a quick review. I'm Brad Moss, and thanks for spending some time with us. We'll catch you next time as we continue exploring how real people are using AI to shape what's next. Until then, keep on building.